Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name's Curtis and this is the Kurt Locker. Today we're going to be talking about the Stray Dog hike sled. To keep things organized and flowing, we're going to cover the design, the construction quality. We're going to talk about my training notes as well as some other price options, and then at the very end I will give you guys my final opinions on this piece of equipment. But for now, let's jump right into the design of this sled and let's cover some specific features that make the hike sled unique to other Prowler style sleds on the market. So it comes with one, and it is a bolt-on style weight horn. Now I have modified mine and put an adjustable style nut on there, which we'll cover later. It also comes with two 30-inch tall, that's measured from the base of the frame to the top of the handle, so 30 inches, and this is 1.9 inch outside diameter tubing. And what it is Schedule 80, so it's what you'll find typical in most Prowler style handles. And then they extend 4 inches down through the frame where they're pinned into place. That way you have handles. You could also use these as loading pins. At the back side here, measured from the base of the foot to the other side of the base of the foot, is a 29-inch long rear cross member, and that has welded on feet. And then measuring 46 inches long from the rear foot to the front foot, we have this other cross member, and this is all bolted together to make shipping a little bit less expensive. Overall, when the sled is assembled, it stands 36 inches tall from the floor to the top of the handle, and about 21 inches tall from the floor to the top of the weight loading pin. Now there's a couple things that make the Stray Dog sled unique. We have the weight loading pin, we have the 3x3 material frame with 4-way 1-inch holes, but let's just start with the loading pin. Now the loading pin, it comes with one, like I said, with a nut. What's nice about having the loading pin versus loading just on the handles is that when you're actually loading the sled down, it's putting an even amount of pressure between the front and rear feet. Additionally, you can move this plate loading pin forward or backward depending on what you're doing. For instance, if you're pulling the sled and you're using a harness, sometimes you have a tendency to pull this front pin up. If you just move the weight pin closer to the front of the sled, what it does is it reduces the chance of that happening, which just makes for a more even pull when you're using the sled. You also have the ability to add a second pin or to remove the pin altogether and add like a wall ball plate, in which case you can load this thing up with sandbags or any other sort of material you want. I've also played with it before where I took the loading pin off and just added the lat pull down seat that is offered from Stray Dog, and I can push my daughter around and she really enjoys it. The biggest difference though that we'll see between this style sled and any other style sled out there is the fact that it's made out of this 3x3 11 gauge tubing, and it has 4-way 1-inch holes going all the way through the entire frame. This gives you a ton of possibilities as far as attachments, different things that you can do, as well as the ability to take this out and maybe put a landmine on it, and that way you can have sled training and then do landmine training. The biggest advantage I think with the holes though, at least for me, because I'm on a pretty small gym space here, is that I can break this thing down so that it is 6 inches wide from the floor to the frame and measures 29 inches on the back, and what I can do is I can stand this vertically and either mount it on a wall, or I can just lay it up against a wall. That way it's kind of flat stored out of the way. I don't need to be tripping all over it or worrying about it until it's actually time to break it out and use it. One of the really cool things, again, with the storage of it is that because you can store it in such a small space and it only weighs about 65 pounds, it's really easy to move around. Now, some of the really cool things about this sled, because of its design and because you have 1-inch holes 2 inches apart, you can have your handles set for 3 inches apart, 11 inches apart, 15 inches apart, or 19 inches apart. Additionally, you can take the handles off altogether and you can put their utility handles on, and this was what's going to give you kind of that low push. Now there is another low style horizontal handle setup, but you have to purchase that separately, and it mounts up here with a bolt style design. I didn't opt for that personally because I felt that I could get away with just fine, and I can tell you that it works wonderfully. When you have it with the utility loops installed, it's about 17 inches from the ground to the top of this loop, which is low enough that you get a really nice direct push, and it's also high enough that you're not hugging the ground. It's the perfect height, in my opinion, for a nice Prowler style sled. One other really cool variation is you can actually put the alpha rollers on the sled, and that way you can use it as like a football style push sled where your shoulders will actually push on this with your head coming through. When you're set up like this, the top of the roller is about 21 inches from the floor. Now what I will say is that this is pretty low. I did do some training at this while I was training for a big truck pull in my last Strongman competition, and in my opinion it worked really well, but like I said, it is pretty low. One other issue when you're using it with the rollers is that this weight loading pin has the weights coming back here, so you'll need to move it forward so you don't bump your head against the weights. That's another reason that I think that you should put an adjustable nut on the weight loading pin versus having the bolt-on design. It just makes it easier to move for different configurations. So now that I've talked about the design of the sled itself, I want to touch real quick on the actual construction quality before we get into my training notes. Overall, the construction quality is really clean. It's got really good welds. They use a tab and welded style construction on the sled unit, just like Stray Dog uses on all their attachments. And that makes for a really consistent and straight and nice, insert fancy word here, build quality. The powder coat is also really nice, really thick, and I'm not exactly nice to gym equipment when I use it, but I can tell you that this is holding up pretty well. There is some anticipated wear marks where I move this weight loading pin around, and a little bit from where I take the handles and put them in and out, but outside of that, it's been thrown around, it's been abused, and it's holding up and looking really nice. Additionally, there's 3 laser cut logos. You have an SD logo on the side and then on the edge of each leg. And in my opinion, that's actually just a really nice, clean look from Stray Dog. It lets you know that it's their quality product and it's not a sticker or anything that's just gonna fall off or wear off with time. One other piece is that these handles are actually really well thought out. They have a little bit of a shock absorber rubber piece here at the base. And what it is just a 1-inch pin that's welded onto a 1.5-inch Schedule 80 pipe. The weld on it is really nice and clean with no burrs that catch, and there's a pinhole in the bottom so that when you put it through, you can just insert the pin, which keeps the actual handle inside of the hole. Now for some really lightweight criticisms. I really wish that it came with the low push handle on the front. I understand this would drive the cost up a little bit, and I definitely do appreciate the fact that you can add it if you want it, but I think that having it kind of added with the package kind of completes the sled. And when we do the price comparisons later, in some cases it's not a direct comparison because almost every other style of prowler sled comes with vertical handles on the back and a low set of push handles on the front. Another critique is that because it is welded on feet, most other versions of this style of sled have bolt-on feet. This is so that it's easier to manufacture as well as it makes it so you can replace the feet when you wear through them. Because Stray Dog has welded on style feet, even though the material is sufficiently thick to last a long time, they really need to offer some sort of UHMW lining to be the sacrificial barrier between the road or the surface and the sled itself. Otherwise, in theory, after a while, you would basically just run out of steel material on the bottom of your sled, and rather than being able to just replace that foot that maybe runs out of material, you now have to replace the entire sled or cut the foot off and have it re-welded. Either way though, it's a lot less convenient than just having a UHMW foot offering. This other criticism is just kind of a overall Stray Dog critique, and that is that all of their racks and 3x3 material come with inline hole spacing. Inline hole spacing, in my opinion, is inferior to offset because anywhere that you have a bolt go through, you cannot actually put a handle through. So if this was offset hole spacing, although it might be a little bit more expensive to manufacture, you would be able to put this at 3, 7, 11, 15, and 19 inches. Instead, you're left with 3, 11, 15, and 19. Really, it's a small critique, but I think that overall, anything that uses 3x3 material with 1-inch holes should be offset hole spacing so that it just increases the hole usage on the actual piece. My last critique has to do everything with this front eye bolt, and it is a very small issue that I actually will fix myself here in my shop, and that is that this front eye bolt, when it passes through this bulkhead, it comes far enough through that it actually interferes with any sort of nut operation that you would put on this very front hole. That very front hole right now isn't really functional at all from the top down. Now for me, that makes a difference because I would like to put a weight horn right there, but I can't put a plate post there because that bolt gets in the way. I plan on just cutting it short, but it's just a minor detail that I think Stray Dog could fix in-house. So overall, the piece is really high quality, and that really completes it for any construction quality notes that I have. Now, before we move on to my training notes, I just want to let you guys know that, like I said earlier, I did modify mine and put one of my adjustable nuts on the sled. That way I could move this plate post wherever I wanted, as well as put it in through the side so that when I go to store it away, it actually stores completely flat. So my notes are based on me using an adjustable nut with it, and that is something that I think Stray Dog should offer. So for my notes, let's keep it simple. With vertical handles, using these vertical handles at all heights, I think that the sled performs very, very well. It is an excellent sled, and it functions like you would expect it to. You put weight on it and you push it down the road. As a push sled using these utility handles, also an excellent sled. Now, I never got to test it with the actual hike sled front attachment piece, but I can tell you that I really don't think you need them, and these low attachments here, these utility loops, these work just fine, and they cost a lot less money. Now, as a push sled using these utility rollers, I think that it performs okay. The reason I say just okay is because it is pretty low, and although these are pretty long utility rollers from Stray Dog, these alpha ones, it's just so low. Most other versions, the only other version I could actually see that had some sort of attachment like this, it actually sat pretty high up, and it's from Elite FTS. It is the Elite FTS sled is clearly designed to accommodate that attachment, and it's clearly designed to be used in football prep. And then the last thing is using it as a pole style sled with this front eye bolt. I think it performs incredibly well. It's nice, it's out of the way. So like I said, overall, as a piece, this thing handles really well. It also transports, it breaks down really well. And when you're moving it in a broken down fashion, it's really light. These handles work really well for carrying it out just like a suitcase. And I just really have no complaints about actually using it outside of the alpha utility rollers being a little bit low to the ground for using it as a push sled. So with that being all of my training notes, we've already talked about the quality and the design. I want to get into the part that most of you are most interested in, which is the price. It is November 2022, and right now, if you get on the Stray Dog website and you go and look this thing up, the base price is $549. But don't fear, use code KURTLOCKER at checkout and you save 10%. That brings the price down to about $500. And at $500, let's compare this thing to other sleds that are out there on the market. Now, first off, I wanted to start with the most affordable sled that I can find, and that is from Madewell Strength here in Ohio, and his version of the Prowler sled is $150. Now, for $150, you can't break it down and store it flat. Everything is a welded style construction. It's also made out of 2-inch tube instead of the 3-inch tube you see here, but that is a very solid sled. So if you're close to Ohio, the Madewell Strength option actually might be a really good option for you. The only advantage that this sled has over that one is the 4-way holes on all of the material, as well as the ability to break down and store completely flat and use other attachments. Now, the one that everybody else is going to compare it to, the Rogue Butcher V2. The Rogue Butcher V2 is $315 before shipping, and Rogue traditionally does not really run any discounts outside of Matte Black Friday or like a Veterans Day sale. Now, the Rogue version does come standard, just like the Madewell Strength version, with the low handle on the front, but it uses the handles to actually load your weight so you don't get this weight loading ability in the middle. The third option, which I think is kind of the most comparable, is the Elite FTS. Now, the Elite FTS Prowler 2 sled is $510, and that is before tax and shipping. It is a triangle style sled, a little bit different in design, but it does come with other attachments so that you can do like a roller style push. It also comes standard with the front loading attachment, and you can get like a little bin to put your chains and stuff in it in the middle. It's a really high quality piece, but I still think that the hike sled kind of edges it out, and it actually costs a little bit less money, as well as the shipping on it will probably be cheaper because it's lighter weight and it breaks down into a smaller package. Those last three options that I've thrown out there are all made in USA, so let's throw something that's an import item, and let's talk about the Rep Fitness version. Now, the Rep Fitness version might be the most approachable for most people on a budget. It's $199 before shipping, but it's a little bit different in its design and it's just kind of limited. So again, a great sled, definitely. Rep makes great products, but it's not made in USA, and it just has a little bit more limitations as far as not having the holes all over the place and not the ability to use it in as many ways. Now, the last thing that I'll cover about comparing all the different models is that this Stray Dog version is available in 11 different color options. So if you're that person that really wants all of your stuff to match, like I really like having this red and black color scheme throughout my gym, it makes a lot of sense because there's 11 different options and it covers everything that seems pretty common as far as power rack colors out there. Every other version has maybe up to 3, and most of them are just available in matte black. But that's the price breakdown for you. Really detailed price breakdowns. There are links below if you check those out. Some of them are affiliate links and help support this channel. But now for my final thoughts, what I think is that the Stray Dog Hike sled is here to stay in my gym. It's really the best and most versatile sled I think I've used in a really long time, and my number one critique being the need for UHMW feet is something that I can solve at my level by just purchasing some UHMW plastic from Amazon, cutting them down to size, and countersinking some holes so that I can attach them to the sled feet. I do also know that Stray Dog plans on offering UHMW feet in the future, so if you're watching this and there's UHMW feet available, that's great, but when it came out, they were not available right away. Additionally, for me, made in USA and supporting small businesses is wildly important, and this sled does support both of those things, which I value. And so for me, I think it's worth the $500 to bring it into your gym, bring it into your space, and offer a whole bunch of versatility in a sled package. But that's just my opinion. Tell me what you think in the comment box down below. That's been it for this review. I appreciate each and every single one of you that watch these videos. And remember, when it comes to your garage gym, you should always keep it better, awesome, and of course, badass. See you next time.